All right, Mech Commanders, here's the Battletech Tactica question of the day. Rear-firing weapons. What's the deal with them? Are they effective? Do they have a place on the tabletop, on the hex map? Now, within this framework, what we begin to see as we cross over into heavy and assault mechs, now you've got some tonnage. You've got to mount the systems. You've got to mount the engine. You've got to mount the armor. But now we start to see multiple weapon points. And you see a wide variety of weapons, whether it's a focused mech like the longbow, or kind of a little bit of everything at every single range like the Stalker, or just really, really hard-hitting close in like the Battlemaster. Certain heavy and assault mechs have their weapons rear-firing. Now, in the narrative, and this is true of every war game, you've got a narrative. The rules try to reflect that narrative as much as possible. We're trying to literally step out of space and time and do this wargaming thing, do this Battletech thing, where in that moment, if we step back from the table, we've got the hex maps, we've got the mechs. If you step back for that moment, whether it's as a mech commander or a mech warrior, you're immersed into the game. In the narrative, the rear-firing weapons are very dynamic. On the tabletop, you get to zap one thing. You have a modifier. It's not a primary weapon. It's a secondary target. A medium laser or two at best. Is it really going to do anything? The question might be, and of course, the hard points and the tonnage, you can't do it. Wouldn't I be better taking that medium laser and somehow facing it forward? Or would I be better off just dropping that medium laser and, of course, adding on a little bit more armor? Because even if you're a heavy or an assault mech, you can never have too much armor. Now, of course, this brings into the framework of variants. And I pushed up to the Battletech playlist here on the channel. We've explored some variants, and you can customize your mechs. There's nothing that says you can't drop. You play that Battlemaster, you play that Dragon, you can't drop the rear-firing weapon, whether it's part of a campaign and you don't want to repair it, or you just say, look, I'd rather have something else. So certainly you can do that, but rules as written, or I should say mechs as written, right off the assembly line with those rear-firing weapons, the idea is you can zap behind you. So tactically, how does that work? This idea of a heavy or assault mech, my definition, danger close. Danger close in Battletech for me is we're like 2, 3, 4 hexes away. We are facing each other. We are blasting away. So on the way in, we exchange some long-range missile fire, maybe some indirect fire, a couple of PPCs. We're testing the waters. We're seeing what's going on. But now those heavy machines have committed. And either I can't let you pass or I'm trying to break through. And now it's kind of who blinks first. Because moving forward with the rules, I can walk, I can run, maybe I can jump. If I'm backpedaling, if I'm moving backwards, I can't run, although I could possibly jump if I have that capability. Once my weapons are locked in on you, all those forward-facing weapons are facing you, if I turn and brake and run, you're going to be still facing me, blasting me. I'm not going to be able to face you. So it's this idea that when you engage a target, and as a heavy or an assault mech, I want to bring all of those weapon brackets to bear on you. I want to blast you. I want to cause so much damage, it strips armor and forces a pilot check on you. Side Tactica, you roll enough dice, something's going to happen in Battletech, right? You know, roll enough dice, something is going to happen. Within that, forcing pilot checks, some of the different ways to force a pilot check, you will fail. So that's a tactica in itself of just taking certain vehicle configurations and mech configurations to force a situation where your opponent is constantly resisting falling down. We're going to explore that a little bit later next week when I push that up to the channel. But back to this framework, I want to blast you with absolutely everything. I want to fire all these weapons. I'm locked face to face with you. Now, while that's happening, of course, we're trading blows back and forth. Other things are going on. That what we talk about is a bodyguard mech. A bodyguard mech for me, again, this is kind of my terminology to understand the game. A perfect example would be I've got my Warhammer and I've got my Hunchback. We're running forward. We're moving to that objective. The Warhammer engages you. Okay, the Warhammer engages your heavy mech. My medium mech, that Hunchback, it has an autocannon 20. I love big guns. You can have your fancy tactics. You can have your redeployment. You can have your combined arms. I get point blank and I start rolling multiple autocannon 20s. That's it. It's game time, right? All that fades away in the face of big guns. So I bring that Hunchback up there, and with my Warhammer engaging its primary target, we're locked, danger close, face to face, blasting away short range missiles, lasers. I'm rattling off machine gun fire. That Hunchback is going to try and work to get rear armor. Bodyguard mech is also, just for the framework, as I'm advancing towards the primary target with my Warhammer, you might send some hovers, you might send some other vehicles to slow me down or maybe try and pull me off from my objective. The heavy and assault mechs that don't move that fast, they want to move in a straight line towards the objective. I don't want to take any detours. You put anything in my way, that bodyguard mech of the Hunchback is going to kind of try and sweep those away. And there are a lot of different mechs that can make a good bodyguard mech. So when we lock danger close, might be a medium mech, it might be a light mech, it might be some vehicles. Often what you see for the lower battle value is a couple of hovers. Like really, if you're going combined arms, low battle value hover vehicles that can almost hang back in your deployment zone. And then once the battle midway on the hex map is locked up, you zip out, you overdrive, you turbo boost with those hovers, and maybe in one turn, but definitely in two, you've now got rear armor. So I've got my Battle Master, I've got my Dragon, blasting away, we're locked in. All of a sudden, there's some light hovers behind me. Or all of a sudden, there's a light mech behind me. So now at that point, a medium laser against a medium mech or a heavy mech rear armor, I'm in trouble. A couple of things have gone wrong, or my tactica didn't quite play out. That mech warrior, we've got a problem. But if there's a light mech behind me or a low battle value vehicle, then, a medium laser is a little bit of something to zap away. You're still going to get rear armor on me. I'm still going to do my best not to have that happen. But at that point, at least there's a price to pay. So within that framework, you start to see that. You start to see where you have something. Now, this brings back to the question of, is it really worth it? Would I like to have another weapon, or would I like to have some more rear armor? So you've got this idea. And of course, if you're playing with the more advanced rules, you can declare primary and secondary targets. Secondary targets, there's going to be a modifier. Am I really going to, if I'm locked in danger close with another machine, am I going to declare that as the secondary and put that one or two shots with the medium laser as the primary? I'm probably not going to do that. So that makes rear firing weapons a little bit more of a kind of ho-hum, in my opinion, because not only is it one shot, no redundancy built in, it's going to have a plus something to it, plus the other machine moved. So we explore all those options. You start to see it on the heavier machines. Now let's talk about show me the real rear firing weapons. I said the real rear firing weapons. There are certain mechs based on the shoulder configurations that essentially can flip their arms or flip their battle pods to rear facing. That's where you get into some really, really interesting surprises, and it's not hidden information. This is kind of another side note. We'll kind of framework this idea. When you play Battletech, for the most part, everything is revealed up front. I've got my technical readout sheets. I've got my status sheets out. You can say, I've never seen this type of hover before. What is it? And then I hand you the sheet. You can kind of know what it is. You can ask at any time what damage a mech has seen, and I can tell you. The idea is there's mech command. I'm not in the back. Let me tell you right now, I'm not in the back in a mobile HQ kicking back, giving orders. I'm right there on the front. I'm piloting a Cyclops right there on the front fighting with you. So within that framework, even if I'm in that Cyclops, I've got the battle computer. I've got the 6K battle computer up. I'm getting those real-time updates. That's kind of simulated in the game where I can ask you, what is that hover vehicle coming towards me? What is that mech configuration? How much damage has it taken? What's the heat level? You've got this tech that feeds back into the game. Generally speaking, you don't reveal mechs and machines if it's a specific scenario or you're playing with the City Fight City Tech hidden rules, where I can take my forces, and I've played games like this, where it's an attacker-defender scenario. We set up the hex map, and the easiest way, or we set up the gaming table with the buildings. I take a picture of it on the phone, top down, and then I just open up a little quick paint on my phone, editing, and I'll put points where I'm deploying my units, mainly so I don't forget where they are. And the idea is they are hidden, my mechs, my infantry, my vehicles, my artillery. A couple of thumpers on the top of a building is got great field of fire. A couple of field guns, autocannon 10s, or even real low battle value, really low battle value. I mean, it's kind of annoying for City Fight in that it's extra bookkeeping, but getting some elevation on buildings for hardly any battle value buy-in, 10 autocannon 2s, all with overlapping fields of fire, it's got some bite to it. It really does. Especially since you're getting a lot of rolls. It's not just about the damage, it's about the crits or possibly getting that headshot. Nothing's more annoying than taking an AC2 headshot, failing that consciousness check and going night-night for a turn. But within that framework, the hidden units, you mark where they are, they're powered down. My opponent doesn't know. Now, when they approach and I power up, then the mech gets revealed, or when the units attack and fire, they get revealed. But of course, there's lost tech, there's other tech, there's other rules where you can detect within so many hexes. So there are times where I will hide the technical readouts, or you might hide them, and they'll be revealed. So back to the framework, I don't have to necessarily tell you that my mech can flip its arms. I might, as a courtesy to a new player learning the game, say, hey, I'm playing this type of mech. Here's its weapons, here's its loadout, but be aware it can flip. It's got the paddles. It can flip it back, and especially if it has multiple lasers or multiple weapons in an arm, that's really, really interesting. That can be up for a nasty surprise. Those are showing you the real rear-firing weapons. Now, on a side note, and then we're going to turn it over to fellow mech commanders. There are some configurations that I've played, primarily with the Battlemaster. I find the Battlemaster is a good anchor mech. What I mean by an anchor mech is there are times based on the mission where this Battlemaster needs to hold this point. We've got a good funnel in. We've got some elevation on the left side, on the right side. And if you bring your mechs up on that elevation, whether it's buildings or, level 1, 2, or 3 hills or mountains or whatever, you move up on there, I'm going to light you up with autocannon fire. I'm going to light you up with longbows. You don't want to be up there. Yes, you'd have elevation to shoot at my other things, but you don't want to be up there. So what that means is you're going to funnel through that little area. If it's a defensive mission or a recon mission, and I want to area control that map, well, first of all, I'm going to flood that with infantry because I've got my Karnovs moving forward. And there should definitely be some Karnovs in your collection with infantry. Then when you're playing the infantry Karnovs for the hot drop and landing, just for the lulls, and you take the variant with the autocannon 20, that's really interesting. We also came up with an interesting side note variant, the Beehive Karnov. You can do this in Battletech. You've got a model. You want to get the most out of it. Beehive Karnov flies in. Battle doors open up. Drops down multiple short-range missile systems, multiple SRM-2s and 4s, just to short-range fly overhead and swarm the heck out of you for low battle value. But within that framework, Battlemaster holds that choke point. And yes, I'm going to be taking a lot of firepower. I'm going to be taking a lot of damage. I can't stop you from moving by because at some point I am going to start backpedaling and withdraw because I don't want to lose the mech. But if I can slow you down for a few turns, you're going to try and get rear armor because you say, hey, Fritz has got this Battlemaster holding this point. He's committed to staying there for a few turns. I've got him locked in. I can pile on, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 to 1 engagement. I can get some hovers behind. So there are some times in terms of a custom variant where I will play the Battlemaster and I will swap around. It's not the most elegant. Certainly some of the mech techs out there could do a better configuration of weapons, but dropping some of the machine guns, dropping some of the other things and doing some switcheroo, taking rear firing short-range missiles. I say that framework in that if you had to give me my choice, rear-firing missiles have more of a cluster of hitting because we're going to be that close. Look, you're going to be point blank on me. I'd rather have that spread of an SRM-6, especially if it's mid or later through the battle where you get a machine behind me, you get a light or a medium behind me. It's taken some damage. It's got some spots open to internal armor. It's not so much about the damage because I'm going to zap you with a medium laser normally. I'd rather zap you with a spread of 2 or 3 different missiles. And we're not even talking about custom ammo from that perspective. But I would rather, if I'm really going to rely on a non-stock and I'm not going to strip away that rear to get something else, I'd rather try to configure it for a short-range missile. But then we got to figure out ammo. I've got another crit bin that could blow. And of course, if that's even possible to put into the mech based on the tonnage and the slot and where you can mount it. And sometimes it takes away from armor, so there's even less. There's a lot, but that's for the mech discussion. So turning it over, Mech Warriors, what are some of your favorite heavy to assault mechs that have rear-firing weapons that we should be looking at? What are some of those flip the paddles type mechs that are going to take both their arms and everything in there and fire rear? And from a mech command point of view, how do we utilize this? I mean, is there some strong tactica to build on it?